It's a beautiful morning. I think I'll go outside for a while and just smile. Just taking some clean fresh.
Hello everyone and welcome to another Krebs Coho replay cast. This time around we do a 1v1 on Semois. Now this is going to be a game replays tournament game for all of you guys. I'm going to be accompanied by my co-host Ryan. Ryan, it is a good pleasure to have you on the show again.
Thank you, I appreciate it. We tried to get together and do a cast yesterday, and I ended up getting drunk all night. And yeah, it was not the kind of drunk that you wanted a drunk cast with.
You never told me about this.
This happened.
It's fair enough. I suppose it's always, we've seen a lot of drunk casts recently, so I suppose it's good that we actually saved that one for probably another time. But anyway, so this is going to be a 1v1 on Semois, as I was just saying, and it's going to be a game replays tournament, so you guys should be aware that this is going on. It is going to be featuring a lot of good players, a lot of average players, and just everyone, a huge mix of people. And so this game is going to be featuring Seph playing as the Brits, and his opponent will be Rizky playing as the Wehrmact. Actually, Ryan is going to be taking a look at Rizky, and I'll be looking at Seph. So Ryan, what are your expectations on this game? By the way, let's just actually get this started. Are you ready for it?
Go ahead.
Cool. In 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so that is it going. And anyway, back to the question. So Ryan, what do you expect from this?
Well, Brits on Semois, obviously with the majority of your fuel being right outside of your base sector, it puts the Brits in a very good position on Semois, especially since they can use selective emplacements to hold the center if they're going to, and they're getting most of their fuel just from that one sector. So they're going to be a little less dependent all the way around than, the Wehrmacht are. And so I think it's going to be an interesting game that way. We're seeing actually a 5 Pio start from Rizky.
Interesting. Very interesting indeed. As you were saying about Semois, there's actually a lot of decently high resource points right next to the home sectors anyway, so it's kind of interesting to be the Brits because you can pretty much just put up your headquarters command truck right next to a point that's pretty much beside your home sector, and we have the headquarters command truck just being picked up from Seph, and that is just probably what he's going to be doing, putting it on the fuel point, the medium fuel point over here. And just actually elaborating a little bit on Semois. Semois is actually kind of a risky map to play as this Brits, just because it's quite a closed map, and just that alone is sort of a risky thing to do as the Brits. Usually you can't get your emplacements down as efficiently. I mean, you can get the mortars, and that's obviously going to help a lot, but then again, it puts you in sort of a bad position by having just such close quarters sort of fights.
Yeah, and one of the things to note about Seph's truck position here is that it's actually covered by the MGs, so you're not going to see one of the things that you can do to the Brits regularly, and that's follow them back to their base on a major retreat and eliminate a lot of their infantry. So being covered by those MGs really helps in stabilizing kind of the Brit play.
I like that, how he just actually done that. Very well spotted by you. Just stuck right in between the MGs there, and as you say, it's a very good way of keeping those infantry sections alive, because a lot of times they do get chased down, and the last thing you want as the Brits is just to lose all that infantry, because the infantry are, after all, the staple unit of the Brits. I mean, without your infantry, you can't do basically anything. You can't put down your emplacements. You can't put down. You can't go capping. You can barely fight, really.
Yeah. Now, are you familiar with the 5 Pio Tier 2 start for Wehrmacht?
That's actually a new strategy in my opinion. I know there's pile spam sort of strategies beforehand. I didn't actually hear of a 5 pile spam though.
Yeah, this is the 5 Pio spam Tier 2. The Wehrmacht player just got teched up to Tier 2. He's floating about 600 manpower, which it can happen with this strat while you're waiting on some fuel to get the Kriegsbergs down. And you know, obviously it's primarily focused towards Brits in being able to use flamers against their soldier armor, and then tier 2 for Grens and Shreks and Packs.
Now tell me, is this a new strategy against them?
Relatively, you're looking at midway through 2.601 to later on a little bit. It's been around for a bit, but it doesn't get played all that often.
It's kind of interesting because, I mean, if we're talking about the 2.602 changes, as you're probably well aware of, is that the Kampfkraft Center has to come out once an initial building has been put down. So, for example, any Wehrmacht quarters, Krieg Barracks, Forward HQ, stuff like that before the Kampfkraft Center comes down. And the thing is that the pile spams beforehand heavily relied on the veterancy that they could gain on their pioneers, and you can't really do that anymore. So it's kind of interesting that he is going for the sort of 5 pile start against the Brits. Can you tell me the advantages of doing such a strategy?
Well, again, it comes down to being able to wield flamers against the soldier armor of the Brits, and it allows you to kind of outcap the Brits by and large. But you're seeing a pretty heavy. You got 3 recon sections out by Seph with the lieutenant. So he's staying very mobile. He's actually playing an incredibly mobile infantry game with the Brits. And that's going to allow him to move through the enemy sectors uninhibited by the movement, nerfs.
That's right. I think it's also a very good way to combat the pioneers, because as you were saying, the 5 pile start, when you have all those pioneers and all that capping going on, the last thing you need is to have such immobile infantry that by default cannot move that fast. So it's really good that he has the recon squads and he can at least go outside of the outside of his own sectors without a lieutenant and actually still go away at a normal pace and actually cap away. So at least he's combating that capping power that the pioneers would have against all those all the Brits would have normally.
Yeah, and the other thing that Seph did was with the recon sections, he actually shot a mine on the southeast bridge down there. He also just sniped one of the grenadiers that was the first grenadier out of the Kriegsbarracks, and he has a half-track out and is getting another grenadier squad built out of the Kriegs.
Well, it's good I noticed all that stuff. I already saw that mine being blown up as well. So it's interesting that that Rizky has that half-track out, but we do have the field support truck out from the Brits, so Seph, and he got the captain first out from that, and now he's going for a little Stuart. So that Stuart is obviously going to be the counter against that half-track right there, and it could do a decent job against the Grenadiers if it does use that sort of shotgun-like ability it has.
No, how do you like the choice of the half-track? Throwing a Pioneer in a half-track, so you've got the machine guns going, you've got the ability to reinforce your Grens on the field versus going like defensive bunkers or something like that.
I personally think that it's actually a good way. It's a good way of keeping mobile, because at least when you're not having to retreat all the way back to your base, you can at least reinforce next to your half track. And the half track, by having those pioneers in there, at least you have the MG on the front and the back of the half track, so you get some sort of suppressive power. Obviously, it's not the same as a normal MG42. The iffy thing though is that if he's going to be going for a defensive sort of doctrine thing, by going for the half track, it's kind of eliminating the point of having a bunker. The whole point of going for defensive doctrine is that you will get down your bunkers, and it's sort of iffy going for that half track, in my opinion.
Now, something to note is that Rizky at this point does not have enough munitions for a Panzer Shrek, and he's got 74, 75, and I expect that to go away in a hurry here in a Shrek to pop him one of these Gren squads.
That is what he's definitely going to be needing, because we have nothing that can really combat the Stuart at the moment. As you guys can see, it's just a sort of cat and mouse game with the half track. He is trying to just dodge the Stuart as best as possible, but the Stuart is just hot on its heels and just about to take it out. One shot in the back armor will take it out, and there we go. The half track going up in a ball of flames. The recon squads are focusing on the Grenadiers in the center, and it does look like the Grenadiers are going to be focusing possibly on a VP win. It seems they're quite intent on going for VPs right now.
Well, one of the things that you have to remember with the rules of the tournament, if the game goes to a third game, whoever has the VP advantage from the first two games will actually end up being able to choose their faction in the third game.
Interesting. So the thing to note for the people that don't know is that this is a game. The tournament runs on 3 rounds. So basically, the best of 3 rounds. If you win 2 games, then you are on through to the next qualifying level of the tournament. So that's best of 2. So 2 out of 3 that makes you go on to the next stage. However, as Ryan was saying, if you do have to keep on going until the third round, the third match, whatever you want to call it, it does come down to the VPs, and then you get to choose which map you like to choose.
Now we have a large infantry push coming out from Rizky here. You got 3 grenadiers, 4
Quite
grenadiers.
a few.
Yeah.
Quite a few indeed. So all those recon squads are still alive. We also have sappers on the field that are obviously going to be repairing that Stuart. So I like seeing all these combinations of units on the field. So just everything that you really need, so the Stuart can at least get repaired up. The captain is on the field as well, and if Seph actually wished to in the later game, he could actually go for an armored command truck, since he at least has that potential unlocked.
Yeah, and to note the infantry presence, you know, the 5 Pio tier 2 is it's very heavily infantry centric until late game, and he's down to 3 Pios and 4 grenadier squads. I don't think he's lost a grenadier squad. But
now,
having said that,
on you go, Ryan.
Well, like I said, having said that, you know, you do have the armor command truck coming out from Seph here, and that he's kind of winning that race towards doing that as a result of Rizky spending quite a bit of his fuel on infantry debt.
See, now we were talking about the Wehrmacht 5 Pio start going on to the T2, and I also want to get your opinion on this. But is it actually viable to go for anything beyond T2?
Well, I think you almost have to against Brits. You know, to a certain extent, you're not always going to be able to keep up. You can, depending on the game situation. Absolutely, you can stay in tier 2 and just stay there, and you might move up through doctrinal abilities. But you know, by and large, I think you almost have to combat things like the Cromwells that will eventually come out, because they do such a good job against infantry. And the other thing that you have to worry about is with Tales of Valor out, if the Staghound comes out, it's an infantry killer.
As it definitely is, that's for sure. The thing about having so many Grenadiers out on the field is that this is just what's making me iffy about this whole strategy with the 5 Pios and going on to T2. And it's just because I've got quite a bit of experience using so many Grenadiers and stuff like that. It's just, you have to reinforce them, and it puts a very heavy toll on your manpower. I'm just going to switch on over to Rizky. And if you look, he's only got 190 manpower compared to Seph, which has over 600. He's just spent a bit. But it's having so many Grenadiers out on the field means you got to reinforce next to your bunker. It's going to cost a load of manpower, and that's going to severely hamper your ability of even teching up at all. It sort of puts you in a cycle of being just locked down to T2.
Did you notice how little damage the Stuart seemed to take from the Shreks? I mean, it took 2 frontal shots and just barely had 5% of its health taken away with each shot.
It's just a super Stuart, that's for sure.
Now,
well,
did I saw something go down for the Wehrmacht player.
Well, I'm not exactly sure. Well, they have the bunker down in the center over here. That's where all the combating is going on at the moment. That Cromwell is over-repaired and is taking on the Grenadiers, but there's only one Grenadier with a Panzerschreck. How is the munitions going for the Wehrmacht?
Well, he's up to plus 43 for now, but he's getting the one sector in the southeast decapped by the captain, but he's also capping the sector in the northwest, so that should stay pretty stable, and by protecting that cutoff point, he's also protecting that plus 16 munitions over on the east side.
I'm also curious to know, does he have any other infantry squads with any munitions upgrades?
No, he only has the one Shrek squad.
That's kind of an interesting thing. So where do you think all that manpower went to? I know we saw a few mines on the field, but we also have the medic bunker. But it seems like he should have more munitions by now.
I actually believe what he lost was a Shrek squad inside of the bunker. Maybe I'm wrong, but you know, of course, we know he's defensive now because he was reinforcing from around the bunker, which, had he been able to keep his half track alive, would have helped.
That's right, if he kept that alive. But it is kind of an iffy thing. I mean, there's tanks on the field. You got the Stuart, you got the Cromwell, and all he has is one Panzerschreck. This is what I mean by the heavy tolls on your manpower rate. He's just asking to be killed right now. I know he's got the good thing is that he has the medic bunker right beside, so he can at least get some squads out of that. But this is going to be a very heavy toll on his current manpower supply, on what he has at the moment. But then again, you know, this is going to be really hard for him to break out of. He doesn't really have that much to combat the tanks. He really needs more anti-tank.
Oh, and a beautiful grenade from the Grenadiers. That is 6 kills on Thomas.
Very nice. Very nice. I think your computer's slightly ahead of mine. I think I'm on 39, 40, 41, 42.
Keep counting, I'm on 46.
45, 46, 47,
All right.
48. There we go. I think yours is just a little bit better computer than mine. But anyway, moving on. There's so many Grenadiers on the field. It's going to be really hard to combat all these, all the Cromwells and that without having the Panzerschrecks on there. Good thing to note when you're the Brits is, say if you had artillery or a mortar pit down right now, the medic bunker is a center of attention for the Wehrmacht in such a strategy. All their guys are going to be nearby it, reinforcing. And if you have a artillery howitzer or a mortar pit, you can devastate these Grenadiers, absolutely devastate them. But instead, what we have is commandos coming out from Seph, so he's gone for his Royal Commandos. That's why we see the glider and the a gentleman running about the field. These are going to be actually a very good choice to combat all the Grenadiers.
I totally agree there. I mean, you've got the Sten guns that the Commandos come down with that are just fantastic, especially against the elite armor that the Grenadiers get. And you know, but you've also got the artillery options that come with Commandos as well.
One thing you do have to note, though, I mean, the Grenadiers are, after all, Veterancy 3, so they already have their elite armor, so they do take less damage from bullets. Also, one thing to note about the Commandos is that they have the demolition charge. Not only are they good against the Grenadiers, but they also have the potential to destroy that bunker if they so wish to get that demolition charge somehow nearby.
Yeah, now I don't know that I necessarily would have rushed those 3 Grens up on this. Obviously, you're going to push some of the tanks back, but you may very well get far enough away from your bunker that you get cut off as a result. This push forward could be flanked.
One of the very difficult things to do as the Wehrmacht, if you're put in a very awkward position, by having so many Grenadiers and infantry on the field, and if you're trying to chase down tanks, so these Cromwells for example, it puts you in a very awkward position because the Grenadiers actually just have to stop in place in order to fire their Panzerschreck, whilst the Cromwells can actually reverse and continue shooting. So that puts you in a very hard position if the Cromwells just continually reverse and continually shoot your guys. Very awkward position to be in. The Stuart is just casually going about the southern side. It actually unleashed its canister shot on one of the Grenadier squads, eliminating 2 of the guys in there, just chasing them away. How is the capping going?
Well, you know, as far as capping stayed fairly stable here for the last little bit. You have they did cap the center VP there, but I think what you're seeing here is you're seeing a rout of the Wehrmacht infantry with the Commandos and the Tommy squads.
This is the absolute perfect opportunity that the Brits are needing right now. They have managed to retreat almost every single Grenadier squad. All of that's nearby are Pioneers, which are obviously not going to do much against the Commandos. This is the perfect opportunity to put down Demolition Charge. And yes, we do have that Demolition Charge. However, 2 guys left in the Commando squads, very badly damaged, just retreating out of there. And that Demolition Charge looks like it's about to go off. And yes, there we go, going up in a huge plume of dust. That is what they really needed, don't you think, Ryan?
Oh, getting rid of that med bunker puts an end to the, endless swarm of Grens that's incoming. These Grens are going to do fine against this single Cromwell, unless this Stuart can get up and join in the fight with a canister shot, and that's not happening. It's too far away at this point. But those Grens are not going to do incredibly well against 2 Cromwells, which they found as they walked around the edge of that house.
Definitely, even against the rifleman squads. I know these infantry sections, should I say. One infantry section having to retreat because only 1 gentleman left in there. But the Cromwells, they're not the best of tanks at taking on other tanks, for example. However, they do a decent amount of damage against infantry, as you guys can see, just one by one, picking them off. And when you have 2 of them, two volleys or 2 kills per volley, potential really. But then again, they do have a bit of a blast on their shots, so they can actually take out more guys than
one. One of the things that I really like about what Seph's doing with the recon squads is, even if they're starting to get low, because the British infantry is pretty tough, when they're starting to get low on the squads themselves, because he doesn't see anything like, Knights Cross that are going to come out and, smoke the squads on retreat. He's actually sniping with the recon squad and then retreating, and it's causing this constant manpower drain for Rizky.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about munitions for the Brits, they really do not need that much else, to be honest. They have their tanks out. They've already upgraded their infantry sections to the recon squad, so all they can really spend it on is demolition charges and canister shots for a Stuart, but even that's a bit iffy. But that sniper shots from the recon squad's definitely a very good option to use your munitions.
Yeah, especially when you consider the reinforced cost of Grenadiers being 40, and that makes it kind of brutal.
So if you notice this glider down where the Commandos are actually reinforcing from the glider. So I absolutely love that. Just because the glider is down nearby, they can reinforce from it, and so that is what Seph is doing. He's taking advantage of that. So basically, even though his buildings are sort of far away, his command trucks, he can at least have something to reinforce nearby on the field.
Yeah, although that reinforce is very slow, isn't it?
It might be a bit slow, but to be honest, as long as you got something on the field like that and you can reinforce nearby, then I see why not. You perfectly have that potential. So another bunker coming down from Rizky on the fuel point on the northern side of the map. So this is probably going to be the next center of operations for the Wehrmacht. This is going to be the new hotspot, and indeed, I mean, this is where all the infantry are just grouping up, getting ready to reinforce nearby. This is going to be really a big toll on Rizky. I mean, he already lost that 1 bunker, so medic bunker, so he didn't have that. He had a certain time frame where he couldn't actually pick up any infantry losses. It's good that he has another one down, but he has to upgrade it yet again to a medic bunker, and this puts a toll on his ability to get Panther Shreks. Now he really needs the Panther Shreks, especially to take out these Cromwells, especially with all these more numbers of them coming out.
Well, I would argue that he in fact doesn't need the Panther Shreks because he has an 88. It's about 90% completed right now.
Well, there we go. that's something I just overlooked. He has that flak out, and well done to him. That is taking advantage of his doctrinal ability, that flak, and so it's going to definitely chase away the Cromwells, and as we see, they are just running away from there, sprinting away as fast as possible.
And I think one of the things that I really didn't see, I saw a couple of mines here and there, but I really didn't see any flamers, and as a result, I think that hurt him against these recon squads. Now, granted, he couldn't engage, if there was a pair of recon squads running around, they'd just get sniped and die. But at the same time, I really haven't seen any from Rizky all game long, and it's incredibly effective against the Brits.
Indeed it is. I think he was sort of stuck between the option of getting anti-tank and medic bunkers, or going for a going for the flamethrowers, and that's the awkward thing about the strategy. And I'm glad you told me about it now, but I'm already critiquing it as much as possible as a heavy Wehrmacht player myself. It's when you're talking about balance of strategies, that's the thing you gotta take note of. Do you want to keep your medic bunker? Do you want to keep your Panzerschrecks? Do you want to keep your flamethrowers? And it's just this huge balance of munitions. Where are you gonna spend it? And you know, it's really sacrificing certain areas in order to get an advantage in something else.
Yeah, and Rizky getting faked out by the call-in smoke and going ahead and retreating. That's again gonna hurt him, because now he's only got this Grenadier squad and the Pyro squad over near this bunker, and while they can reinforce from there, Seph's gonna push on that. He's gonna take the advantage of the infantry not being on the field.
Oh man, this Grenadier squad is taking so many casualties. Those recon squads are using their sniper ability to put the pressure on that Grenadier squad, so they had to retreat on out of there. The Flak actually managing to take out one of the Commandos, surprisingly, so well done to them. But the Grenadiers just looks like they're going to manage to get in to give some reinforcements on the area just in the nick of time.
And Seph actually sniping one of the medics to try and avoid the Grenadier squad from coming out of the medic bunker. Not quite getting his timing right there, and not getting the 88 down. That's kind of unlucky all in all.
I think the whole goal of that attack there was probably to take out the 88, possibly that Grenadier squad, but it doesn't look like the most successful of attacks. The Grenadiers are moving forward. There's 4 of them without even a Panzerschreck on them. And now, if we're talking about anti-infantry capability, I know those flamethrowers are going to be really good, but then again, all these Grenadiers alone are going to do a lot of damage against the Brits by themselves, to be honest.
Well, the Grenadiers, you know, the rifles that they use, while they do decent damage, they're definitely not the highest anti-infantry weapons. I hate to say it, but I've seen LMGs used to some effectiveness in that regard. Nobody likes LMG 42s, I know, but I have seen them used fairly well.
I know I think there's a lot of new potential that needs to be found in 2.602. But to be honest, you know, the Grenadiers, they have better weapons than the Volksgrenadiers, and I wouldn't shy away from them. The Grenadiers actually have very good weapons. If you keep multiple squads together, they can actually do a lot of damage, especially from close range. They have very good accuracy. That is just my opinion anyway.
Oh yeah, no, that's agreed. It's just going to be hard to overcome that against the Commandos, and you know. But this Flak is doing a good job of keeping those Cromwells kind of backed off. You see Seph actually using the buildings to keep his tanks blocked so that he can maintain his VP lead.
Well, we have 119 points for the Wehrmacht, 392 for Seph, and so Seph has a major point lead on Rizky. So Rizky is definitely going to have a very hard time. If he's going to be able to do anything, he needs to capture these VPs, but then again, it's going to be so hard when you got the Cromwells and the Commandos so nearby. Very difficult to do.
And the ability to have the call-in artillery associated with it, you know, it's just all stuff that adds up. You see a Grenadier squad going down on the retreat from the Commandos.
Ah, what a loss. To be honest, it's kind of a difficult thing to push forward when you're playing so defensively. I know Rizky is being a bit aggressive with his Grenadiers, but then again, when you're playing defensive doctrine, it is kind of hard to be offensive. I mean, you don't get the Stormtroopers, you don't get Tigers, you don't get Blitzkrieg, you don't get Inspired Soul, neither King Tigers. So all you can really do to push forward is, for example, registered artillery, and that alone, he has to go on the other side of the doctrinal tree, and that's going to take a lot of time to actually get there, and plus that's going to cost a load of ammunition as well, which he probably doesn't have.
Yeah, well, he's also leapfrogging 88s as a way forward because, you know, manpower and fuel, he was able to float a little bit, and so he went ahead and dropped another 88 down on the ground. Munitions is obviously a big thing for him right now, trying to get all of the Panzerschrecks he can. This 88 having some sandbags put around it just for some excess cover.
Oh, you just missed the artillery show. There's a bit of artillery coming down on the VP here. Rizky actually looked like Rizky was going to stay there for a bit, thinking that it might have been a decoy. However, some real artillery shots started coming down, and he did manage to retreat. But it is looking quite dire for Rizky at the moment. 42 points left, and he just got one of his squads annihilated on the center VP. 2 flaks, however, they can't even reach the center of the map, and that is good game from Rizky and Seph. So I believe the playback is, yep, it is now over. So Ryan, any thoughts about that?
Seph, the way that he played this, as soon as he recognized he had pyro spam to deal with, he immediately, switched over to a heavier recon squad and used that to stay more mobile. Obviously, the Pioneers are not going to be a match for those without flamers, and he can snipe even flamer squads in the process. So he's got a lot of options at that point. He played an incredibly mobile Brit, and he used his commandos and his recon squads to great effect, just at constantly draining manpower.
I definitely like what Seph done. When I actually initially saw this game and saw that it was a Brit on Semois, I was thinking, oh wow, this is going to be really hard for them. But then I saw Seph and I was just relieved because Seph is a very good player. He comes back a long way, even all the way back from the Company of Heroes beta. I'm talking about the beta of Company of Heroes. That's over 5 years ago, right? But if we just look at the last few things from Seph, he has 850 manpower floating. But if you look at his pop cap, 71 out of 74, he's actually maxed everything out, and that's just due to the fact that he has four Cromwells on the field, multiple infantry sections, and the Commando, so very good unit preservation from him. We only actually saw 1 Cromwell go down from him. If we switch on over to Rizky, I actually can't see anything that he has because of the replay function, whatever, but he barely has any Grenadier squads left, it looks like.
5 Grenadiers, 1 Pyro, 2 Flak 88s, and I think that's it.
This is, what about the manpower? How much manpower did he have?
I can't see that either. It cut that off for me.
Alright, fair enough. Well, to be honest, I think at this point in the game he must have not had much manpower just because he was constantly reinforcing. So it puts quite a heavy toll. To be honest, if I was playing the Wehrmact, I actually probably wouldn't go for such a defensive strategy, the 5 Pioneers, the T2 sort of thing. I think it's kind of too hard to push on your opponent, and when you got these flags, for example, and when you're playing on Semois with all these buildings in the way, it's kind of hard to even get your flags to shoot at anything. That's just my opinion, and I hope you all enjoyed this. Any other closing comments before we move on to round 2 of these games?
Nope, absolutely not. Looking forward to round 2.
Okay, guys, so we will see you in round 2 of the next Seph vs. Rizky game.